Gentle parenting is for gentle children. Gentle parenting does not work on every child, and parents who take the gentle parenting approach raise soft children. These are the most common and ignorant ideologies that I hear when it comes to gentle parenting. I think that there is a lot of confusion around what gentle parenting actually is. Officially, there are four parenting styles. You have authoritative parents, which are the parents who have high expectations for their children, but they're also highly involved and highly responsive with their children. Then you have authoritarian parents. Those are the parents who have high expectations, but low involvement and low responsiveness to their children. And then you have permissive parents. They have low expectations, but high responsiveness to their children. And lastly, you have uninvolved parents. They have low expectations and low involvement and responsiveness with their children. In this video, we'll be mainly focusing on authoritative parenting, which again is gentle parenting, and authoritarian parenting. The authoritative parenting approach is the best and healthiest way to raise your children. However, when I look around, most people are taking the authoritarian parenting approach. And in this video, we're going to dive into the differences, why I think that is that most of us take the authoritarian parenting approach, and the benefits of the authoritative parenting approach. In this video, I'll be mainly using the term gentle parenting when I'm referring to the authoritative parenting approach. So, when it comes to gentle parenting, it is going to require a lot from the parent that is raising that child. It's going to require a high level of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and emotional regulation. And for a lot of us, an immense amount of inner child work. I think that when it comes to gentle parenting, a lot of us do not have the information to even know how to properly gentle parent your child, but we also don't have the tools to actually be effective gentle parents. In the book Spare the Child, Dr. Stacy Patton said, "Whipping your children is the whitest thing that you can do to them." Unfortunately, across multiple categories in the Black community, our problems directly come from slavery. A lot of us don't know in the Black community is that physical punishment towards our children was not something that we did prior to slavery. Slavery fundamentally changed how Black parents view discipline when it comes to their children. If you think about the dynamics on a plantation, our ancestors were constantly in a state of survival. When it comes to the authoritative parenting approach, you're more focused on connection rather than compliance, or just trying to get the child to do what you say because you said it. But obviously on a plantation, that is not the safest thing for you to do. There was no room for Black children to mess up on a plantation because they can be killed or sent away to another plantation. Because of this, there was no room for a connection on a plantation. It was all about compliance, because compliance equals survival. Like a lot of other things in the Black community, although we are no longer physically enslaved, the ideologies of slavery have continued to be passed down generation after generation, and we still hold on a lot of these beliefs, even if we don't realize where they come from. Anytime I bring up this conversation of gentle parenting when I'm talking to Black people, I always get a lot of pushback. For one, again, a lot of people don't understand the difference between authoritative, aka gentle parenting, and permissive parenting. So when I bring this up, they think that gentle parenting means just letting your child do whatever you want and not having any form of discipline or consequences with their actions, and that's not the case at all. We have been conditioned for decades to spank our children, to yell at them, for some of us to even curse at them, and we've normalized it so much that gentle parenting, again, authoritative parenting, is frowned upon when research shows that yelling, spanking, and cursing at your children causes more harm than good. The long-term effects are not positive at all. One of the main arguments I hear is, "Oh, well, it worked for me. I got spanked and I turned out just fine." You didn't. A lot of us, because we are in a constant state of survival and everyone around us is in a constant state of survival, we think that we turned out just fine. But there is a difference between surviving through life and thriving through life. And a lot of us are still in a state of survival. It may not be as deep as the state of survival when we were enslaved, but a lot of us are still in a constant state of survival. A lot of us struggle with emotional regulation. A lot of us lack effective communication skills. A lot of us lack self-awareness. We think that we have a high level of emotional intelligence because some of us are able to communicate how we feel when we have a relationship with someone, whether that be platonic, romantic, or like a family dynamic. A lot of us think that because we can communicate how we feel, that we have a high level of emotional intelligence and effective communication skills, and that's not always the case. For one, a lot of us cannot communicate without raising our voice and yelling. A lot of us cannot communicate without completely losing our shit, essentially. A lot of us also cannot receive that form of communication back to us. Like, a lot of us cannot receive someone else telling us about ourselves without it feeling like a personal attack. We think that we're good at communication because we're able to say, hey, what you did hurt me. So we think that that's what communication is. But effective communication, a part of that is listening and comprehending. For a lot of us, when one of our loved ones tell us, hey, you hurt me, hey, I don't like that you did that to me, a lot of us are not able to receive that and then apologize, make moves to change, whatever the case may be. A lot of us take that as a personal attack at our identity. And without realizing it, a lot of this does stem from having parents who took the authoritarian parenting approach. A lot of us struggle to speak up for ourselves. Maybe it may not be in romantic relationships or platonic relationships, but we struggle to speak up at work. Again, this can be a direct result of having authoritarian parents. Authoritarian parents consider speaking up for yourself as a form of disrespect. I'm going to give an example of that, and my husband actually told me to bring this up in this video. So I was raised with an authoritative mom, a gentle mom, and my husband was raised with authoritarian parents. Now that we are full grown adults, and my husband does have a high level of emotional intelligence. However, my husband struggles to let other people know how he feels. He actually has to sit with it for a while. He gets anxiety around communicating to his parents, communicating to his boss. He struggles to speak up for himself, sometimes even with me. He always does because he's gone through years of therapy, but he sits with it in his head for a while because he was raised in a household where speaking out of turn was something that he would be punished for. He wasn't allowed to have a voice because he was raised with parents who felt like children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And when a child says, hey mom, I don't like that you did this, or a child sets a boundary, he was raised in a household where that's considered a form of disrespect. So now, all these years later, even though he's an adult, to the outside looking in, people looking at him, they're like, oh, well, he turned out just fine. Yeah, to a certain extent, yeah, until he's bothered or triggered and he is struggling to communicate how he feels. Versus me growing up in a household where I was allowed to say what's on my mind. I didn't get spankings as a child. I have no problem saying how I feel. In fact, it makes me very uncomfortable not to. I always say what's on my mind. If I have an issue with someone, whether it's my mom, a friend, my husband, it doesn't matter. I'm able to say, I don't like this. I'm able to set boundaries without spiraling first. Recently, my husband's stepmom came to him and said, hey, I want to have a conversation about blah, blah, blah. He was like, I don't want to do that. In the most respectful way, by the way. I saw the message. He was just like, I don't really want to have a sit down talk with you. And he gave a reason why. But her response was, that was very disrespectful. She was very upset, and she felt like him saying, mind you, my husband's a grown ass man. She felt like him saying, I don't want to talk about XYZ, or I don't want to have a sit down conversation with you. She considered that to be a form of disrespect. This is what I mean by a lot of us think that we turned out just fine. Just because you're walking around and you're able to essentially function in society, yeah, you're not, in a mental institution or anything like that, but to not be able to effectively communicate in relationships, whatever that may look like, because it looks so different for these individual people. A lot of this, most of it, goes back to how we were raised and the parenting approach that our parents took when they were raising us. So I did some research on the long-term effects of what happens when you spank children, when you yell at them, and when you curse at them. So for one, your brain cannot tell the difference between physical violence and emotional violence. So that means a lot of parents think that their approach isn't harmful because they may not spank their children, but they yell at them and they think okay, well, at least I'm not hitting their child. Your nervous system and your brain cannot differentiate the type of violence. It just knows that you are unsafe in that moment. The same goes for cursing. And this doesn't mean that you can't curse around your children. It is very different cursing around them versus cursing at them when you are disciplining them or quite literally calling them curse words. A lot of us think that yelling or cursing at our children work because when we do it in that moment, they then comply, like they follow what we were saying. But them listening out of fear doesn't mean that they actually understand why what they did was wrong. They're going to listen in that moment because you either yelled at them or you hit them, and they listen because they were afraid. But long term, a few things happen. So, for one, children then associate discipline with violence. And this is not something that just because they're an adult now, they're going to be able to get that out of their head. If them doing something wrong or any form of discipline, if it always resulted to some form of violence, like yelling or hitting them, this is what they're going to associate discipline with. Remember when I first got engaged, my husband did something and he literally said to me, I feel like I should be punished. Like, I feel like you should like punish me. He wasn't meaning physically, but I guess he wanted me to like remove some type of like access. And I was just like, I don't need to do that. Like, I love you, I trust you, you apologized, let's move on. But he associates him doing something wrong with, I need to be punished now. And this quite literally stems from his upbringing. Aside from associating discipline with violence, long term, yelling at your child and hitting your child becomes less effective over time. In the beginning, yeah, they may listen here and there, whatever the case may be, but as time goes on, you're going to notice that you have to yell more or louder. You have to hit them more often or harder because it loses its effect over time. Now, the difference between how an authoritarian parent deals with their child acting out. Let's just say we're talking about a tantrum, right? Your 3-year-old is spazzing out on the floor. An authoritarian parent may yell at the child, hit the child's gonna cry some more, be really upset, send them to their room, whatever the case may be. That is the approach that the authoritarian parent would take in that type of situation versus a gentle parent. They're, for one, going to connect with their child. Child experts say that when it comes to authoritative parenting, the first thing that you should do is get on their level. So that quite literally means like stooping down to be like at eye level with your child, making eye contact with them and connecting with them, saying, hey, like, I understand you're upset because of XYZ. Connecting with the child. The reason that you connect with a child before correcting them is because your brain cannot receive correction when it's in a state of stress. This still applies when you're a full grown adult. When you are stressed out about something, it is really hard to think logically and make a decision. If you do make a decision in a state of stress, it's probably not going to be the best decision. The same applies for children. Trying to correct a child in the middle of like a tantrum, 9 times out of 10, they are quite literally not going to be able to receive what you are saying because their nervous system in this moment is dysregulated. So your job as a parent is to come down to their level, make eye contact with them, use a calm tone and say, hey, I'm here with you. Connect with the child. And then once the child calms down and you realize that their nervous system is now regulated, you can then say, okay, what was this about? How about next time we try to go about it like this? This is the approach that we should be taking when it comes to their children. I'm not even going to try to make this seem like, oh, some parents should take this approach. No, authoritative parenting is the best form of parenting, and all of this is backed by research. When I do these videos, yes, I'm always going to give my opinion and my perspective on things, but I'll just be speaking out the side of my ass. Like 9 times out of 10, I read and I researched. Realistically, 10 times out of 10, I'm going to give you the stuff that is backed by scientists, whatever the case may be, and then I'm always going to add my opinion on top. But child experts will tell you that there is nothing good that is going to come from spanking your child, yelling at your child, and cursing at your child. Nothing good is going to come of that. Even if you don't see how or you don't know what to look for. Because here's the thing, I think a lot of us, we actually do see what happens when we yell, spank, or curse at our children. We just are ignorant on different parenting approaches, child development, all of these different things. So even though we see what's happening, we don't know that certain behaviors come from this behaviors and they're going to turn out like this. A lot of us are just very uninformed when it comes to parenting. Another thing that I noticed in my community is this idea of raising soft sons. We want our boys to be hard, and it is genuinely harming us as a community because while they're little boys, we're like, oh, they need to be hard, they need to be tough, this, that, and the third. But then we will simultaneously be grown women on the internet complaining about being in relationships with men who lack emotional intelligence. Do you know why they lack emotional intelligence? Because they were raised by a mom and a dad who felt like they need to be tough. They're not supposed to be emotionally intelligent. And emotionally intelligent men are emotionally intelligent people, but specifically talking about the men, is what you want in a relationship. You both people should be emotionally intelligent, and to some degree, because of women essentially being groomed for marriage and relationships, women do have a higher level of emotional intelligence because we associate softness, vulnerability, crying, things like that with femininity. So essentially there is a level of space for women to be vulnerable, to be soft, to be vulnerable, emotional, things like that. But when it comes to boys and men, we tell them that those characteristics are feminine and they're not for men. So what happens is we are now full grown adults and we lack harmony in our relationships. Again, specifically talking about the black community, we lack harmony in our relationships because we raised our boys and we told them that being soft is for girls. They don't need to cry. They don't need to be soft. They don't need to be emotional. They don't need to be sensitive. They don't need to be vulnerable. And then we have grown men who are human beings who have big emotions, heavy emotions, just like women, and they do not have the skills or the tools to deal with them. So it comes out like violence, like anger, like yelling, like manipulation, narcissism. It comes out in the worst ways, and it all goes back to the conditioning as a child and the approaches that we take with little boys compared to little girls. So I think that there are a few different things that makes the gentle parenting approach a lot more difficult. And let me say this, raising children is not supposed to be easy. Like, I don't know why we think that children are always supposed to follow instructions the first time, why there's never supposed to be challenge, that we're just supposed to tell them what to do, they listen, and that's it. That's a dictatorship, and it's very unrealistic because even as full grown adults, we don't even do everything that we're supposed to. Some of us go over the speeding limit, some of us run red lights, some of us drink and drive. You better not, but some of y'all be drinking and driving. A lot of us do things that we know that we're not supposed to do, but we do them anyway. So if we're full grown adults and we still challenge authority, break the rules, don't always do the right thing, why do we have this expectation for literal children who is quite literally like their first time on earth? But I think there are a few reasons that a lot of us really, really struggle to take the gentle parenting approach, aside from lack of information, which I think realistically is the biggest reason. I think a lot of us just don't understand child development and these different parenting approach, and we're just doing our best. Like, or let me not even say our best, because your best would be researching child development. I give slack when it comes to a lot of things. Children ain't one of them. So no, I'm not going to say that us just going into parenting all willy nilly is doing your best. It's actually less than the bare minimum. The day you decide that you're going to be a parent, you need to be educating yourself on parenting styles, child development, and how to effectively raise a functioning adult in society. Because the thing is, children are only going to be children for this very short period of their life. They're going to be adults for the rest of their life. So when it comes to raising children, we need to take the approach and have it in the back of our mind like, I'm not raising a child, I'm raising a future adult. And this is not a dictatorship. This is not just, a lot of us see children simply as an extension of ourselves and not like they are their own autonomous beings, which they are. That's why a lot of kids grow up to be adults and they cut their parents off because they don't have to deal with them anymore. You are not raising just an extension of yourself. Once that child is 18, however, 18, 19, whatever, however you raise that child, you're going to see how that child turned out because of your parenting approach. And if your child cuts you off and decide they don't want to deal with you anymore, it's your fault. There is no if, ands, or buts about it. No child wants to turn 18, 19, 20 at 30. No child wants to be separated from their parents. So if your child that is now an adult decides they don't want to deal with you anymore, you need to look in the mirror. Point blank, period. But back to why I think it is a struggle to be authoritative, gentle parents. So, for one, aside from, again, lack of knowledge and everything like that. There's also a lack of resources and planning for children. So, something that I've noticed in just comparing the black community and the white community, because there's obviously so many different nuances and different communities that we can discuss, but just comparing the very stark difference between how a lot of white people approach having children compared to how a lot of my people approach having children. A lot of us don't plan it. Like, a lot of us just get pregnant and just have the kids. We don't financially prepare for it. We don't emotionally prepare for it. We don't mentally prepare for it. And we do not make sure that we have a very secure foundation for children. Now, I know a lot of the people who lack self awareness and want to choose to be victims is going to hear this statement and say, oh, well, I tried this, I tried this. You can do all of this and everything's not going to turn out right. I know. Okay. Like, I know, but let's be completely real. That is not what is happening most of the time. I don't like this narrative that, oh, well, I tried my best, I did everything right, but I can't help if this happened, I can't help if that happened. Yeah, we can't control everything, but we can control a lot. Like, we do have a lot more control in the matter of having children and raising children than we let off. And here's my thing: if you feel like you just don't have any control over external situations when it comes to having children, then don't have none. Point blank, period. So, when I say a lack of resources, I mean, if you are in poverty, it is going to be very difficult to take the gentle parenting approach. Why? Because gentle parenting requires a high level of patience. If you're trying to figure out how are you going to pay your bills, everything like that, and you're constantly stressed, you have very little patience for anything, let alone parenting. And children are a lot. I don't even have children yet, and I am fully aware that not only do they cost a lot, but they require a lot of attention. It's going to take a lot of parenting. Going back to what I said earlier, parenting is not supposed to be easy. It's just not. You are raising someone who is quite literally here for the first time, and it is your job to teach them everything. Everything. Of course, yes, they'll get older, they'll go in society, they'll learn this, that, and the third, but the foundational part of their development is on you. And if you are stressed about how you're going to pay for this, if you are in a relationship that is, whether it is a family dynamic or your romantic relationship, if it is a toxic relationship, that is also another layer of stress that is going to make it very difficult to effectively gentle parent your child. Another thing is going back to what I said earlier, even if you have the financial resources, we see that with a lot of celebrities. Even if you have the healthy relationship, again, we see that with a lot of celebrities. If you lack a high level of emotional intelligence yourself, you're still going to struggle to be an effective gentle parenting. And again, we see this a lot with celebrities. Yes, I think you need both. But if I'm being completely honest, I'm going to say honestly, I got to put them neck and neck. And I be going back and forth because here's the thing. I want to say that the emotional intelligence is more important. And I think it's like a smidge more important than financial stability. And the reason that I say that is because, yes, without the whole financial stability situation, if it really comes down to it, you don't need to have an iPhone. You don't need to put your child in new clothes every day. You don't have to live in this big house. You can get a tent and live off grid. Like during our primitive times, before we had homes and stuff like that, we were just fine without all these extra things that we technically don't need. So technically, the financial aspect isn't as important, but it still really is because even if you're able to raise your child without all of these things, we kind of live in a world now where you do need to have a phone. Like, payphones are no longer a thing. You kind of have to have a cell phone. You have to have access to the internet. We are long past that point where you can just choose whether or not, which I guess, unless you want to live off grid. Nonetheless, I think that emotional intelligence is going to be the most important thing. And with emotional intelligence, that's self regulation, self awareness, communication skills, all of that gets grouped in with emotional intelligence. But immediately behind that is going to be the financial element because, like I said before, if you are stressed about how you're going to pay for things, how you're going to take care of things, that is going to come out in your parenting. Even if you are not stressed about your bills and you're able to meet the bare necessities of taking care of your child, or your bills get paid, but there's no room for extra, I still feel like you're going to see why that can be a problem. Because for one, if you are taking care of all of your child's needs, your child is still going to go to school unless you do the homeschooling approach. But with the understanding that you're putting your child like in the traditional schooling system, they're going to be around other children who do have clothes, who do have an iPhone, who do have all of these things. And yes, that's going to negatively affect your child. It just is. Unless you're about to just homeschool them and then not have them around other children, which would then mess with their social skills. You see where I'm going with this. But you need both, because we see that a lot of celebrities will have money, but then they'll create like all of these broken homes. And yeah, the truth of the matter is kids don't really care about how much money you have. They care about connection. They care about having a relationship with you. So having a bunch of money doesn't really matter to children if you're not able to emotionally connect with them. The thing is about the harmful parenting approach is it's easier for the parents, not the child. And like I said earlier, parenting is not supposed to be easy. Harmful parenting doesn't really require as much patience. Your child's not listening, hit him. Your child's not listening, yell at him. Your child's jumping off the walls, give it some melatonin and let it go to sleep. Yeah, it makes your life easier, but is it actually helpful to your child? No. And if you are going into parenting trying to make your life easier, then you went into parenting for the wrong reasons. And granted, I don't think that anyone actually went into parenting trying to make their lives easier. I think that a lot of us heavily underestimate all that it takes to actually be an effective parent that is going to raise a functioning, thriving adult in society. I think a lot of us underestimate what that takes. And again, going back to my community, I think that we just don't put a lot of thought into having children. I think that we get excited about how cute they're going to be. We get excited about the baby shower. We get excited about having the person that you love as a permanent figure in your life. And none of those things matter in the grand scheme of things. They don't. How cute the baby is. It's not cute when you're trying to figure out how stuff's going to get taken care of, or you don't work the 12-hour shift and your child is crying and you're too tired. You can't afford a nanny. You can't afford a babysitter. You still got to go to work. There's nothing cute about that. They're no longer cute in that moment. When you are sleep deprived, stressed out, in a stressful relationship, toxic relationship, all of that, the last thing on your mind is how cute they are. That's just the reality of it. So, to close out this video, I want to talk about some of the random hot takes and different approaches that my husband and I will be taking when we have our child. I already know that people are not going to agree with me, but I still kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts, because I don't know. Maybe some of you will agree with some of the rules, approaches, and hot takes we have around when we're going to have our daughter. So, for one, we are allowing our daughter to curse. She will be able to use curse words. Can she curse people out and call people out their names? No, but that's not just exclusive to curse words. She can't say call people out their name in general. Like, she can't call people like ugly. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not nice. But she'll be allowed to curse, because the way that we look at it is curse words is just another way that we use to express ourselves. It's a part of our language. Us deciding that words are good or bad is just an opinion, if we're being honest. Because if you say, I had a bad day, or I had a badass day, how does that make it a bad sentence? You get what I'm saying? Like, how does that make that sentence harmful? Maybe the day wasn't just bad. Maybe it was bad as shit. Maybe you're not just tired. Maybe you're tired as fuck. There's a difference. And I feel like my daughter should be able to express herself. Maybe she needs to, you know why you use curse words. Sometimes it just drives the point home. And as someone who is an avid reader, a very educated woman, I do not believe that people who curse are like uneducated. There are other words that you can use, but if I choose to say fuck, it's because I chose to say that, not because I can't find another word. It's because that's the one that I wanted to use. So again, I know this is gonna be hot taking, people looking at me like your child is going to be off the wall. She's gonna be bad as shit. That's another thing. I don't really buy into the whole calling children bad. I don't like it. I don't like it. At minimum, we can say that children are misbehaved, but if they're misbehaved, it's because of you. Quite literally, the only thing that children know is what you teach them. buddy. What you teach them, what you expose them to, the environments that you place them in. So if your child is bad, which again, why are we calling literal children bad? I don't think we understand what that is doing to a child's psyche to be told, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Words have meanings. Okay, so let's stop saying words like this to children. But yeah, I already know some people are gonna hear this and be like, oh my god, your child's gonna be off the wall, blah 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 blah. Another one is full autonomy. And I don't think this one is that big of a hot take. But what I mean by that is if we're going over to a family member's house, whatever the case may be, and different people want to pick her up, hug her, kiss her, touch her, and she says no, she's allowed to say no. Another one is we're not going to force our child to share. Now, my husband is very generous. I was about to say we are very generous. I'm not. I'm not even about to sit here. Generous in different ways. Let me say that. Um, our child will be raised to know to give back. My husband and I will be volunteering. Our daughter will be volunteering with us, things like that. So she will naturally probably be a very generous and giving person like my husband. But she's not going to be forced to share her toys. Like if she wants to share, which again, I think because of the way that we're raising our child, she will naturally want to do these things. But I grew up with like a lot of siblings. I don't like the whole idea of having to share everything. She should be allowed to know that this is yours and you're allowed to tell other people you can't have access to this thing that belongs to me. I think that that is better for her development than telling her like you have to share. Like your friends are over. Yeah, we'll tell her sharing is caring. It will be a nice thing to share, but we're not going to force our daughter to share her toys, share her bodily autonomy. Because here's the thing: if we tell her that she has to share all of her belongings, what are we also saying about her body? If she's not allowed to even keep her toys to herself, how can we then turn around and say, oh, well, you can tell people no, they can't hug you or no, they can't do this? I feel like those things can be grouped together depending on the context, you know? Another thing is our daughter, when she's like old enough to like pick her stuff out, like I mean like 3 or 4 years old, when she can talk and like say, hey, I want to wear this, hey, I want to wear that, she can wear whatever she want as long as it's safe. And what I mean by as long as it's safe, if it's 30 degrees outside, no, I'm gonna let my 3-year old wear a fucking bathing suit. She's gonna get really sick, obviously. But beyond that, like as long as it's like safe for her to do, I don't care what the event is. Because I noticed that like some parents don't care if y'all are just running errands. So, like you go into the store, you want to wear rain boots and pajamas. A lot of parents don't care in like day-to-day errands. But then when it's time for like you're taking like family portraits or you're going over to your family's house for like Thanksgiving or Christmas, you want them to match. You want everybody to be all cutesy and matchy and blah 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 blah. We don't care. I'm a very fashionable person. I'm a fashion designer. My husband is really big on fashion as well. And we both were able to like grow up experimenting with clothes. I grew up with a very creative mom. His mom is also a fashion designer. So we grew up in these environments where we are as fashionable as we are because we were allowed to just have fun and do what we want. We want our daughter to be able to have the same thing. Our goal when it comes to raising our daughter is for her to be safe, happy, and to feel loved and well taken care of. That's what I care about. If she wants to wear a polka dot shirt, Spider-Man pants, and one light up shoe on the left foot and a flip flop on the right foot, or they're on the wrong foot to Thanksgiving, I don't care. I don't care. I feel like it'll be good for her creativity. As she get older, she will probably get better at color coordinating, whatever the case may be. But I also think it'll be really good for her independence. The very last thing that maybe, I don't know if it's a hot take or if it's more so just unorthodox, is the fact that our daughter will not be in traditional schooling. So originally, we were going to do Montessori schooling. Then we decided we were going to do homeschooling, but we actually decided that we're going to go. Our daughter's going to be in Waldorf schooling, and I'll put the difference on the screen between Montessori schooling and Waldorf schooling. But looking at the differences between the two, I think they're both really, really beneficial. But just with us and just the type of child, human, adult that we want to raise, we've decided that Waldorf schooling will be the best schooling for our child. But nonetheless, it'll be one of the three: Montessori, Waldorf, or homeschooling. absolutely will not be in the public school system or like a Christian private school. My husband grew up in public school and I was in a Christian private school from kindergarten to 12th grade, which, by the way, I loved being in Christian private school. I really, really did. But I am not Christian. My husband is not Christian. And so we will not be raising our daughter in a religious environment. But most Montessori schools and Waldorf schools are private institutions, if not all. I don't think there's any public Montessori or Waldorf school, but specifically when I'm talking about private schools, I mean like Christian or like Catholic schools. Absolutely not. We will, I guess that's another like hot take. Our daughter will not be raised in like a religious environment. We'll introduce her and maybe teach her about different religions, but more so from like a educational standpoint, not a this is right, this is wrong, this is right, this is wrong, this is what you need to do, this is what you don't need to do. No, we're going to present her with the different information, and if my daughter decides she wants to be whatever it is that she wants to be, we're going to support that. But like I said, I am not religious and neither is my husband. So that is all that I have for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you're still here all the way at the end of the video, thank you so much for sticking around because I know this was like a lengthy one. But subscribe and like this video if you would like to see more content like this. And please, I would love to engage in some dialogue in the comment section. I want to hear your thoughts and I hope you all are having a great day.